Authority figures like teachers, guardians, and even sports coaches prompt us to have some strong feelings. Their methods of communicating impact us all the time, and more often than not, if their communication isn't effective, it really changes how we see them and whether we like being around them. Most of us want teachers and coaches who can communicate competently. We want for them to have the ability to get across the key information for our shared needs while still taking all the relevant context into account as they go. That means more than just creating good lists of instructions. It also means that they should notice if, say, we've got dark circles under our eyes from a bad night of sleep and might need a gentler communication approach one day. Lots of first-time teachers, for instance, realize just how hard it is to communicate competently when there's bad news to share, or a complicated project to explain, or a student struggling in class. Even though work is a place where a lot of us experience both competent and incompetent communication, competence isn't just about doing a good job at work. It's about communicating effectively and appropriately in a given place where we connect with others, from home to school to community and political settings. That's why communication competence is one of the main goals of this course, and why we need to tie it into our own experiences. I'm Cassandra Ryder, and this is Study Hall, Intro to Human Communication. The idea of communication competence might seem odd at first, since, we've all been working on communication since we were little. But we encounter new communication contexts all the time, and we're always working to expand our ability to communicate over time. None of us learn to talk and are instantly perfect at it forever. Competence, when it comes to communication, is defined as a balance of task effectiveness and relational appropriateness. Task effectiveness is focused on whether the communication is helping us get something done, conveying requests, requirements, goals, or any other action items clearly. Relational appropriateness is focused on how we convey the action items, taking into account our relationship to the person or people we're communicating with. We use different levels of formality, seriousness, and urgency depending on who we're talking to. Let's look at what happens when communicators have more task effectiveness or more relational appropriateness, but not both. So imagine there are 2 movie theaters in your town. At the first theater, the manager goes over to each staff member and gives them a clear list of what they are expected to do during that shift. They watch the staff like a hawk, making sure everyone is on task, but there's no chit-chat, just reminders of what should be done next. At the second theater, the manager frequently forgets to give clear assignments, accidentally assigning 2 people to a 1-person task and other issues like that. But he's always joking around, asking people how they are doing, and trying to foster friendships between team members. He never comes down hard on anyone for any issues with the movie theater, even though there are a few more complaints from customers on his shifts, since everything seems to get done rather slowly and unevenly. Boss 1 shows strong task effectiveness, getting the point across and performing to the letter of her job description. But some workers end up transferring to another movie theater because the environment is so focused on work and has very little camaraderie. She'd benefit from a little more relational appropriateness. In this case, a warmer behavior and a recognition that the job doesn't have to be so serious for people to still get things done. Long term, not focusing on relational appropriateness could cause employers to try to find other jobs. Boss 2 goes overboard on relational connection, and if Boss 2 was pairing relational connection at work with more task effectiveness, he'd be a pretty strong boss. But the work is suffering because he doesn't consider or integrate task effectiveness. As a result, some of his workers get disciplined by the owner of the theater, and enough customer complaints could result in Boss 2 losing his job too. To be a communication competent boss, these 2 would both need to balance an attitude that makes work pleasant with the need to accomplish certain tasks and keep the experience high quality for guests. One more thing to remember is that task effectiveness doesn't mean serious, and relational appropriateness doesn't always mean friendly either. The commanding officer of a major military organization may need seriousness to be relationally appropriate. His subordinates in the military might feel really uncomfortable if he was chatting casually all the time about the weather. On the other hand, excellent task effectiveness for a preschool director requires an ability to make the experience engaging for little kids, which could end up being really silly. A 3-year-old doesn't usually respond super well to long emails about how to use scissors, glue sticks, and crayons. It's just not right for the task. To explore this balance for ourselves, let's think about a former teacher, a guardian, a coach, or a boss who was a competent communicator. Ask yourself why you think this person was so good at communicating. These notes could be a helpful guide for future communication. What did this person do that balanced task effectiveness with relational appropriateness? Most of us have people whose communication style we admire. We might sum up their advice in a few quick phrases like, take a moment to think before speaking, or remember that everyone we talk to deserves respect. Thinking through more examples where task effectiveness meets relational appropriateness can also help us approach this challenge with thoughtfulness. Let's look at some examples where each person strikes a different but appropriate balance of communication competence. Eli owns a boutique downtown, and in any given shift, he balances the need to get the accounting and inventory tasks done in the back with the need to spend time out in the boutique itself. When he's out talking with customers, he's building connections that help keep repeat customers long term. Lisa is a therapist who feels a lot of connection with her clients. If they were her friends or family members, she'd be prone to sharing a lot of her own experiences with them, and even to crying and hugging them when they share hard emotional revelations. However, she knows that relational appropriateness and task effectiveness in therapy require some professional distance, often being the calm and collected one so the client can feel respected and heard. Cyrus is raising a teenage daughter on his own, and he wants her to succeed in getting into college. While his first instinct might be to push her, he knows that the right relational approach is to foster her independence. Instead of nagging, he works hard to encourage her on tasks that she undertakes on her own. In each case, there isn't just one way to relate to other people, and there's not just one way to achieve the tasks involved. Which priority takes center stage at a given moment depends on Eli, Lisa, and Cyrus to notice what their customers, clients, and children need. They can then make that relational connection while still keeping the tasks in view. There are spoken and unspoken standards in every context for success. Just like there are rules in sporting games, and people can break a rule and be accused of unsportsmanlike conduct, there are many levels of intense focus on a task that can actually undermine the situation, because there are accepted ways we relate to others. Let's look at a context where strangers have to accomplish tasks together. Group projects. Usually, when we meet our group, the first few minutes are awkward. Most of us are trying to figure out what the task is and what the relationships are all at once. One way to balance the two concerns is to just get to know our group members. A few minutes before we jump into the project itself is all you need. By just talking to everyone, we might find out that our group includes folks who want to eventually start their own businesses. We might be able to bend some of the work in the group project to the theme of entrepreneurship, which is great for the whole group. Sometimes we'll learn that everyone is stressed out. Shocking, right? Maybe they're too busy at their jobs or dealing with a lot at home. If we learn this early in the group project, we can prioritize tasks, making meetings ultra quick and taking one source of stress off all group members' plates. That's solid leadership. We might ask our team which elements of the project actually appeal to each person, helping them generate their best work. Or we can demonstrate leadership by building in some buffers so that if someone has an unexpected problem and can't finish their part of the project on time, there's a plan in place to handle it. There are various reasons that some of us dread group projects, not the least of which is that it's a lot of communication competence to manage. When we go into the situation hoping to foster stronger bonds with each group member, and to try to successfully complete all of the tasks of the project, we often get better results in terms of both group functioning and overall project success. Learning that communication competence isn't just a way we are or are not can help us remember the idea of growth mindset, or the idea that we're not fixed in the skills we already have. We can get better at communication. If we see ourselves as no nonsense or super direct, those can be valuable traits at times, but we're free to also improve the relational appropriateness aspect of our communication by getting to know the people we communicate with and addressing their needs. Same goes for if we see ourselves as friendly or people-focused. We don't have to change our whole demeanor just because there are times where our task effectiveness needs to improve. Most of us need to improve on either task effectiveness or relational appropriateness, not just one time, but like over and over again through our careers. New seasons of life introduce new kinds of tasks and new kinds of relationships, so it makes sense that we have more to learn as we communicate to create a meaningful life. Seeing communication as a balance between completing tasks and respecting the relationships in our life can help us see success in both the short-term and long-term goals we have for ourselves. And there are examples of communication all around us that help us grow. Whether we're admiring our coach's ability to communicate both critically and constructively, or taking mental notes that our teacher could be a little more relationally appropriate when the class is mega stressed, we can use all of our communication encounters to help us grow our own competence in future communication. Thanks for watching Study Hall, Intro to Human Communication, which is part of the Study Hall project. a partnership between ASU and Crash Course. If you liked this video and want to keep learning with us, be sure to subscribe. You can learn more about Study Hall and the videos produced by Crash Course and ASU in the links in the description. See you next time!